Hello, Kaliba. It's Amy from David Zwirner Books. We are distributed by Simon & Schuster, and I'm here to give you a brief walkthrough of our key titles for January, February, and March. Before I do so, I want to just quickly add that David Zwirner Gallery is one of the leading galleries with a global reach. We represent more than 120 artists around the world. So we have galleries in New York, London, Paris, Hong Kong, and this spring, we are very excited to be opening our gallery space in Los Angeles. So we'll be bringing exciting artistic cultural programming out your way, and in turn, helping you in terms of brand building so that when people see David Zwirner books in your stores and on your shelves, they will be able to associate it with a local gallery. So that's quite exciting for all of us. So we're talking about books that we're publishing between January and March, or books that are important to think about promoting between January and March of this year. So they may not be they may not be front list, but they're key backlist, and they fit either from their California connection or thematically with the holidays and commemorative days that we're all marking in January, February, and March. So without any further ado, I do want to start by giving you all an enormous thank you for nominating our fall 2022 title, Raymond Pettibone, Surfers and Waves, for this year's Glenn Goldman Golden Poppy Award. The book has gotten great buzz this holiday season. It's a gift guide pick for California Magazine, GQ Magazine, New York Magazine's Gift Under $200 guide in partnership with The Strategist. So these are all, although they are regional, they also have a broad reach beyond their regions, which I think is exciting to see. Voting for the Golden Poppies is fast approaching, and we hope that you all will consider casting your vote for what's sure to be an evergreen backlist book for art lovers, surf fanatics, and people obsessed with punk music graphics and Raymond Pettibone's contributions to that genre. It's gorgeous, and thank you for getting it onto your list of finalists. Looking forward to attending the event in February and seeing who the winners are. So now let's focus on February, and February is Black History Month. We've got a few recommendations for you. One is a brand new title that's publishing in January. It's actually started to ship now, so it is available now. It's the first monograph on the work of the Zimbabwean painter Portia Zvavahera. This is Portia here, holding up her book, which she loves, which is very exciting. This really is the first book to spotlight her career, the work that has been exhibited both in our galleries and at the Venice Biennale of last year. She was one of the artists that really stood out at last year's Venice Biennale in terms of media. So it's a very exciting time to bring the book out. And I have to say, her work is gorgeous. And you'll see we've got some spreads here as well. There's a fascinating interview in the book with Portia herself by Ali Biswas, and Ali co-edited The Soul of a Nation Reader, among other key books on Black art. So she's a great choice to interview Portia. And Portia talks about her education at the Zimbabwean National University's art school and how learning, it was very focused on design as well. And so you see a lot of fabric references and overlapping patterns in her work that really speaks to that really interesting cross-disciplinary education that she had. Anyhow, it's a beautiful book. It's gorgeous, and it's very easy on the eye. So I encourage you to keep an eye out for it. It is shipping now. And I want to pivot to a key backlist title for us. It's one that's consistently in our top 10 on BookScan in terms of sell-through, which frankly, I was surprised to see when I joined David Zwirner Books from Phaidon earlier this year. It's a quiet book, but it's a very, very important book by the late Black American photographer Roy DeCarava and Langston Hughes. DeCarava was the first Black photographer to win a Guggenheim Fellowship in the early 50s. And this book came from that. It was published in 1955. The Guggenheim Fellowship helped fund the project while he spent a full year shooting the photographs for the book, which really is a pictorial narrative of family life in Harlem with photographs by DeCarava and text by Langston Hughes. As you can see here, The ratio of text to illustration is really, it's just so beautifully designed, this book. The duotone printing is off the charts. And if we can cut away so that I can show you a copy, if you haven't had it before, this is a small, slim, but beautifully produced paperback book. So while most of the other books I'm going to talk about today are truly coffee table books, this is really something that is designed for people to pick up and not feel guilty about taking out and spending money to take out of the store. Obviously, it retails for $24.95 with the number of illustrations of beautiful photographs that are in here. That price when you're holding this book feels completely legitimate. At the time that it was published, Langston Hughes was quoted as saying, "We've had so many books about how bad life is. Maybe it's time to have one showing how good it is." So it's this really warm, loving look at life in Harlem at a really interesting time in American history. We reissued this paperback edition in 2018, and it's just a perfect little package. And it's what I like also about it for Black History Month and beyond is this combination of stellar photography and obviously the inimitable voice of Langston Hughes. Um, but in spite of the fact that de Carava's work is held in major museum collections, we can go back to the slides now, including in California, SF MoMA and Stanford's Cantor Art Center, Roy de Carava only published 4 other books in his lifetime. And we are pleased to offer both The Sound I Saw, which is the book on the left, which is photographs of the jazz world and again, Harlem, and but it's large format and gorgeous, not Taschen sumo size large, but coffee table standard large. And Light Break as well. These are for readers who want to spend a little more time and a little more money looking at his work in a larger format. But the Sweet Fly Paper of Life is truly the gateway to de Carava's work. I just want to call out 3 other Black History Month picks that spotlight California artists. One is the late Noah Davis. I spoke quite a bit about him in my last Caliba presentation for Holiday, and we're going to take the meat and potatoes of that presentation and attach it to the end of this one so that you're able to get some context about who Noah Davis is and why California is such an important place to celebrate him and how it shaped him. I will also, before we move on, call out the fact that Dagny Corcoran, who recently passed away, who was a leading, and you all, if you don't know who she is, Google her, and her obit in the LA Times in particular is just really powerful stuff. She really was a leading face and voice for art book publishing and sales certainly in LA at LACMA, but beyond. And having her contribution in this book, I think, is really powerful, along with the other big names that are here. So Noah Davis, again, this book was published in 2020, but it is a celebration of a Black artist who means a lot to both Northern and Southern California. And 2 other titles that I'll flag for Black History Month from our Clarion series of exhibition catalogs that we publish with our partner Exhibition Space 52 Walker. They are monographs on Black female artists. Interestingly, both Candace Williams and Nikita Gale are LA based. And they're younger, they're emerging artists, and these are their first books, their catalogs to exhibitions that were held in the space. And interestingly, the Clarion series of these exhibition catalogs is named after Octavia Butler's Clarion Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Workshop. I mean, she didn't start it, but she was a key member. So all of those titles that I just shared are terrific for review and consideration for February. Moving on to March and Women's History Month, I'm going to flag a book that we just published, Ruth Asawa, All Is Possible. It's another beautiful exhibition catalog that only Zwirner can really do because we represent the Asawa estate. It's beautiful cloth-bound foil stamping. This is another book that I spoke about in my last presentation, so we'll be tacking some of that information onto the end of this one. So we just published the book, and it has been one of the darlings of the holiday gift guides. It was a holiday pick from Vanity Fair, New York Magazine, Domino, Design Milk, Real Simple. A really broad swath of the media has pulled this book out and celebrated it as a wonderful gift. February 12th is Ruth Asawa Day in San Francisco. It's officially Ruth Asawa Day every year. In my previous video presentation, I go into Asawa's California backstory. It's rich and powerful and frankly vital to understanding the Japanese American experience, as well as appreciating Asawa's remarkable life and creative output. Um, our book is special because it's filled with never before published drawings and other family focused works alongside her iconic wire sculptures. So again, this is a book that was just published and I'm excited to remind you all about it for February and March, as that's when Ruth Asawa is perhaps one of the focus female California artists that we should all be paying attention to. Moving on, we've got a few more Women's History Month picks. One is another book from our fall front list, fall 22 front list, Deanne Arbus Documents, which is actually, it's not a photography book. It's not a book of her work. It is a collection of articles, reviews, coverage of her work from throughout the 1960s, 70s, and obviously she passed away in the early 70s, but examination of her work continued on. So it's this beautiful, and I should also mention that the writings are all reproduced in facsimile. So what you're seeing in this book is not just, it's not standard text. You're seeing the actual magazine articles, newspaper articles reprinted in their entirety in the original layouts. So it is a really impactful, important anthology of art journalism, art criticism, and celebration of female artists that in her lifetime never really got the recognition that she has come to get ever since. So it's an excellent time to consider including it in a Women's History Month display. And I have a few other Women's History Month picks. One is our paperback biography of Alice Neal by Phoebe Hoban, which we published in 2021. It's a fantastic read. Alice Neal's a fascinating painter. And this is a reading book that has a few color plates in it, but otherwise it's portable and paperback and highly recommended. And our graphic novel, well, it's a graphic biography, so I like to call it, about Hilma af Klint. When you're talking about women in history and you're talking about women in art history, she has really risen to the forefront of the conversation, given her the way that she fused traditional painting and drawing with metaphysical and spiritual aspects in a way that artists, especially women, were not doing in her lifetime. So anyway, she ever since her big Guggenheim show in 2018, she's just become an artist that everyone loves and wants to know more about. So this is a graphic biography of her life, and we actually published it this fall. We are sold out and reprinting, and we will have copies again arriving at Simon & Schuster in February. So perfect for Women's History Month placement. And last but not least, many of you are ordering and reordering the books from our Ekphrasis series. I flagged 4 titles that are written by women that are 4 strong selling titles as well. So something to keep in mind also for Women's History Month and for your displays. If we want to cut away quickly, I can hold up the copy I'm reading, the newest book in the series, Strange Impressions by Romaine Brooks, who, a woman, a lesbian at a time when, that was that was a challenging time to make your mark in art and in society, but truly, I mean, her story is fascinating. This was just published this month. So this series, again, small format, $15 retail. They merchandise beautifully together, and it's worth considering our Virginia Woolf, Gertrude Stein, Cynthia Zarin, and Romaine Brooks titles in this series for Women's History Month as well. So that wraps up January, February, March. I look forward to talking to you all again about April, May, June, when we have some fantastic new titles that you can think about for Mother's Day and other gifting opportunities this spring, but also other, it's books are more than objects, as we know, and I'm always very happy to talk about their content and to share that content with you. Again, we're distributed by Simon & Schuster. They have our Edelweiss catalog. Everything is where you need it. Uh, we also print catalogs still. So if you'd like a printed catalog, please let your Simon & Schuster rep know, and we'll have our spring catalogs in their warehouse in the next couple of weeks. And otherwise, it's always fine with me if you reach out to me directly at ahorties@davidzwirner.com. Thank you and have a wonderful holiday. And I look forward to seeing you all in February at your uh, Golden Poppy Award ceremony. Thank you.
I'm sure that Ruth Asawa is a household name for all of you, and certainly she was for me. But what I found fascinating was digging into her California history. So she was born in 1926 in Norwalk, California. She was one of 7 children. Her parents had emigrated from Japan and they operated a truck farm until the Japanese-American internment during World War II. Except for Ruth's father, the family was interned at an assembly center that was hastily set up at the Santa Anita racetrack for much of 1942, after which they were sent to another relocation center in Arkansas. Now, Ruth's father was arrested by the FBI in 1942 and interned in New Mexico. She didn't see her father for 6 years and they didn't know where he was. So clearly, this had a huge impact on her childhood. And what I find fascinating is her take on it. She said, "I hold no hostilities for what happened. I blame no one. Sometimes good comes through adversity. I would not be who I am today had it not been for the internment, and I like who I am." So once she graduated from the internment center's high school, she really wanted to attend college in California, where she'd grown up, to study to be an art teacher, but she was prevented from attending college on the California coast, given that the war was still going on, and the zone of her intended college was still declared prohibited to ethnic Japanese, whether or not they were American citizens, which she was. And about that, she has said, "I was told that it might be difficult for me, with the memories of the war still fresh, to work in a public school. My life might even be in danger. This was a godsend because it encouraged me to follow my interest in making art, and I subsequently enrolled at Black Mountain College in North Carolina." We all know what happens at Black Mountain College. She studied under Joseph Albers, and that's where she learned how to use commonplace materials to make her art and started experimenting with wire, which is really what she's most known for today. She learned her now famous wire crocheting technique while on a trip to visit Albers when he was on sabbatical in Toluca, Mexico, where visitors used a similar technique to make baskets from galvanized wire. And it's very interesting. The crochet community now is highly aware of Asawa's work. So, outside the fine art world, she's an influencer in the crochet community as well. What was fascinating to me was her career trajectory. So in the 50s, she was selected for biennials in New York, San Francisco, Brazil. And, that's a coup for any woman in the 50s, much less a Japanese American artist. And then over the next few decades, as her reputation blossomed globally in the art world, she remained highly active and committed to her work in California. And her work in California was beyond making art. She participated in lithography workshops in LA. And then in the 60s, she started to get commissions for large-scale sculptures in public and commercial spaces, mostly in San Francisco, but also elsewhere. She installed her first public sculpture After Dark in Girardelli Square, hoping to create the impression that it had always been there. 2 cast bronze mermaids in a fountain, one nursing a mer baby. So it was very controversial. Many San Franciscans, especially women, supported her mermaid sculpture and successfully rallied behind her to protect it when other forces were trying to remove it. She also created a fountain near Union Square on Stockton between Post and Sutter. She mobilized 200 school children to mold hundreds of images of the city in San Francisco in dough, which were then cast in iron. So over the years, she became known in San Francisco as the Fountain Lady. She was really instrumental in helping people create these experiences and memories. She joined the San Francisco Arts Commission, so she was lobbying politicians and charitable foundations to support arts programs. She helped co-found the Alvarado Arts Workshop for school children in 1968. Then she was part of the founding of the first public arts high school in San Francisco in 1982, which in 2010 was named for her. She went on to serve on the California Arts Council, the National Endowment of the Arts, and as a longtime trustee of the Fine Arts Museum of San Francisco. So she was really embedded in and committed to improving art access for young people and a broader audience. specifically in the Bay Area, but her work resonated nationally, and a lot of programs were built on the back of that in other places. So it's fascinating. We are thrilled to represent her. The gallery is thrilled to represent her, and we are thrilled to have 2 Ruth Asawa books on our list. One is in print now, Ruth Asawa, which was the catalog to a beautiful show of her work in our New York gallery in 2017. And we're publishing this fall a collection of her very personal drawings, artworks depicting friends, family, life in a different way than her work is typically presented. It's also an exhibition catalog to a show that had almost 100 works that were rarely seen. So she's a big part of your history and everyone in the global art world's history. Time to celebrate it. The next artist had a shorter career, unfortunately for him, but no less impactful. Noah was a painter, installation artist, and founder of the Underground Museum in LA. He was born in Seattle, the youngest son of a lawyer and educator, and his oldest brother, Khalil Joseph, is a filmmaker and video artist who has shown work at MoCA LA. So in fact, Noah himself, his first job when he moved to LA in 2004 was at the MoCA bookstore. So he was very much about fusing art and books, even back then. Over the years, his work was shown in museums and made its way into collections around the country. But locally in California, we're talking about MoCA, LACMA, the Hammer, the Santa Barbara Museum of Art, SF MoMA. In 2012, he founded the Underground Museum with his wife, who is a sculptor, and his brother and sister-in-law, in a series of interconnected storefronts in Arlington Heights, which is a historically working class African-American and Latino neighborhood in LA. Their goal was to bring museum quality art within walking distance, as he put it, to a community that had no easy access to it. So that museum is closed indefinitely, but in its heyday, John Legend and Solange Knowles launched albums there. Barry Jenkins, the director of Moonlight, and Raoul Peck, the director of the James Baldwin documentary, I Am Not Your Negro, screened their films there. It was very much a part of the community and a lab for artists to experiment. Unfortunately for the museum and for all of us, Noah passed away at his home in Ojai in 2015 of a rare form of cancer. He was 32. So it makes it even more poignant to consider that he had his own painting studio when he was just 17. He had a very short, but very, very, bright comet of a career. What I find very interesting is that when talking about his work, he has said, quote, "If I'm making any statement, it's to just show Black people in normal scenarios where drugs and guns are nothing to do with it." And he describes his work as, quote, "instances where Black aesthetics and modernist aesthetics collide." I have to say that resonates perfectly with me. I first encountered his work only a couple of years ago in the highly influential 30 Americans show that traveled the country. It was 30 Black artists, most of whom were living and a few were not. And I didn't know his work and I didn't know his name, but I stood in front of his paintings for longer than I typically would. It was super impactful in a very quiet but powerful way. Also felt like it could have been created 100 years ago, 50 years ago, or today. It had a really timeless quality, these beautiful, beautiful paintings. So our book that is available now on Noah's work is itself a beautiful object. It's cloth bound, tipped in image, gold edging on the pages. It's a catalog of David Zwirner's New York City Gallery retrospective of Davis's work in early 2020. It was the last show in the gallery prior to the city's shutdown. We are going to publish a second book, Noah Davis in Detail, in spring 23. Same trim size and price point. That is a nice complement to this one. So, but this is a beautiful book to consider bringing in now and sort of celebrating